Peace and blessings is real. First and foremost, I want to take this time and give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh through his only begotten Son, Yahushua, for allowing this word to come out. And I hope you sincere brothers and sisters is edified by this word. And the name of the lesson tonight is going to be called A Mother Kills Her Own Son and Take Another Woman's Son as Hers. And King Solomon exposes her. Yeah, his wisdom, okay? King Solomon's wisdom exposes her. What we're going to deal with tonight is something that's actually real. Ecclesiastes 1 and 9 tell you there's nothing new under the sun. And especially you women that watch the Lifetime channel, this is a very common thing that happens. For those that watch the Lifetime channel, you see, or movies to that magnitude, you see women have a baby, and you know how babies are switched at the time of birth or kidnapped. Okay, that was those particular acts even happened in the ancient times. But tonight, what we're going to speak about is something pertaining to King Solomon, his wisdom, and him being a king. His wisdom was put to the test in regards to him using his wisdom to judge right. And in his word tonight, we're going to show you that the difference between these two mothers. You're gonna find out who the mother that killed her own son and took another woman's son as her own. But you're gonna find out in this lesson, King Solomon wisdom is going to expose her, man. Okay. For those who may not be familiar with King Solomon, he was considered the wisest man of his time. And like I said, he used his wisdom to quarterback the women of the story. We're going to talk about the two women son mystery. You see, what you see on the screen is what a real mother looks like. The signs. We're going to talk about the signs of the real mother. So in regards to these two women's, one is going to be the real mother and the other is going to be the fake mother. And it's up to King Solomon to use his wisdom to figure out who's live and who's jive when it comes to the son that these two women are going to be fighting over. And what you see on the screen, I can just give you a hint. This is what it looks like, the real mother. That's all I can give you. That's the only hint I'll give you. What you see on the screen is a mother. This is what a real mother and her son looks like. We're going to come to you in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 16 through 28. And it reads, then came here, Salakia, then came there, this is verse 16, 1 Kings chapter 3. Then came there two women that were harlots unto the king and stood before him. Verse 17, and the one woman said, O my Lord, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. And it came to pass the third day after that I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also, and we were together. There were no stranger with us in the house, save we two in the house. And this woman child died in the night because she overlaid it. And she arose at midnight and took my son from beside me while thy handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. Verse 21, and when I rose in the morning to give my child suck, behold, it was dead. But when I had considered it in the morning, behold, it was not my son which I did bear. Verse 22, and the other woman said, nay, but the living is my son, and the dead is thy son. And this said, No, but the dead is thy son, and the living is my son. Thus they spake before the king, which was King Solomon. Verse 23, Then said the king, the one said, This is my son that liveth, and thy son is dead. And the other said, Nay, but thy son is the dead, and my son is the living. And the king said, Bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, Divide the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other. Then spake the woman who the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the other said, Let it be neither mine nor thine, but divide it. Then the king answered and said, Give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof. And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of Yahweh was in him to do judgment. You see that? That was cold-blooded. Now, we're going to bring it back, and then we're going to recap it and then close it out. So the first thing we must acknowledge was it was what it said in verse 16. Thus came there two women that were harlots, okay? Now, harlots, another name for harlot is prostitutes, okay? They were not harlots, or they were not prostitutes. They were not actual prostitutes, okay? Even though they were harlots, but they were not actual prostitutes. How we know? Because in Deuteronomy 23:17, it tells you there are no whore of the daughters of Israel. So that eliminates them being actual prostitutes. But what they were hostesses, okay? They was keepers of a house of entertainment. In other words, a house where prostitutes entertain men and things of that nature. They were hostesses, okay? So now that we have that established, verse 16, it tells you that there were two hostesses unto King Solomon, and they stood before him. And it told you that the one mother child was born, and 3 days later, the other mother child was born. But the one thing I want us to focus on as we get ready to get into this word, in verse 18, it says, And it came to pass the third day that I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also, and we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, save we two in the house. And this woman child died in the night because she overlaid it. You see that? When you look at overlay, that's another way of saying the child suffered a sudden infant death syndrome by way of accidental suffocation. Okay? That would be the closest way to describe overlaid it. And it says, And she arose at midnight and took my son from beside me, and while the handmaid slept. So this woman, after sudden infant death syndrome, aka by way of accidental suffocation taking place, she switched the babies. Okay? She took the alive child and put the dead child with the other woman, you see. And that's how this whole fiasco got started. But we're going to pick this up. What did King Solomon say, man, in regards to handling this dispute? He said, Give me a sword, okay? And that way, he'll just cut the kid in half. Then they both will have a half apiece. That was his way of making it simple and plain. Let's settle the score this way. Give me a sword, and we'll take the living child, and we'll cut him in half. Then y'all both will have a part of it. You see that? But what happened? The real mother said, the living child, she said in verse 26, Then spake the woman whose the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my lord, give her, which is the other mother, give her the child, and in no wise slay it. But the other said, let it be neither mine nor thine, but divided. So one mother was like, nah, don't kill the kid. You see that? But then the other mother was like, yeah, you know what? Kill him, and we can just divide him. You see that? So King Solomon, being wise as he was, the whole point of bringing the sword and proposing to cut the child in half, because it was gonna separate the lie from the jive. And how you separate the lie from the jive? In other words, the real mother from the fake mother, because the real mother is gonna show natural affection for that child. The real mother is gonna show love and endearment for that child. The real mother is gonna show nurturing of that child. The real mother is gonna show compassion for the life of that child. The real mother is gonna show tenderness of that child. So the mother in verse 26, when she said, no, give the other woman a child, I'd rather see him live, King Solomon was able to look at all those signs. And in verse 27, what did he say? He said, the king answered and said, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof. You see that? That was cold-blooded, man. Now, how did he figure that out? Because the fake mother had no compassion. She showed no natural affection. She showed no compassion. She showed no tenderness. So it was clear she was the mother that had sudden infant death syndrome, a.k.a. by way of accidental suffocation with her child, and then switched it. Okay? So you see that? That's cold-blooded, man. So what am I saying, man? King Solomon was the wisest man of his time. And being a king, he used his wisdom to quarterback that whole fiasco. And the way he was able to expose the lie from the jive, he took a sword. He never was going to cut the kid in half. But he knew if he posed getting the sword and cutting the child in half, he knew that the real mother would not allow that and would just rather see the kid, to get a kid away for him to stay alive. But he also understood the one that would be okay with the child being cut in half would be the fake mother. And the whole point of this situation was she lost her own child, and then she had evil eye towards the other woman for having her child. So she wanted to take her child instead and give her the dead child. But King Solomon exposed her, man. See, that type of wisdom, you can't teach that. Only the Lord can give you that. And Solomon was able to expose this woman, man. What you see on the screen, this is the real mother. This is the real mother. This is the real mother here. As you see what she's demonstrating, natural affection for this child. What she's demonstrating, nurturing for this child, compassion, tenderness, love, and endearment. You see that? A real mother would never, kill her own son and take another woman's son as her own. Only a fake mother, only a woman that kills her son and takes another woman's son as her own is someone that would do that. And King Solomon exposed her. And you see on the screen, this is the real mother, man. You see that? That's wisdom. You can't even put a price on it, man. I hope you sincere brothers and sisters was edified by this word. And we give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh through his only begotten son, Yahushua, for allowing this word to come out, man. Shalom.